going to have a look at 5 of the most important language features that you need to know for any English course. So if you're doing English language, you need to be able to talk about these features. If you're doing English language, you also need to be able to write using these features. If you're doing literature, you have to talk in detail about how writers use these features as well. So regardless of what type of English you're studying, these language features are absolutely essential in terms of getting you to understand how and why writers use language in a certain way. So in case you're not sure about that term, language features, I'll just define it for you. So a language feature is a tool or technique that a writer uses to enhance the meaning of an idea or text. So any kind of tool or any kind of technique that they use in order to get more meaning, pack more meaning into what they're writing about. So that could be creating extra layers of meaning, creating double meanings, or it could just be making the idea stronger, sharper in the reader's mind. So that's the reason that writers use language features, and if you do any kind of creative writing, you need to use language features yourself as well. So have a quick look at a couple of language features now then, or 5 to be exact. First one is repetition. This sounds like what it is, so essentially just repeating something, repeating a word or phrase more than once. An example of this would be that phrase that you hear in films a lot, I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times. You might have even heard someone say that to you at some point in your life. So the bit that's repeated, the bit that's repetition here is I've told you. We have to think about the effect as well, the reason why this is repeated. This is repeated to enhance the effect of the number of times. This person's kind of angry and they're trying to emphasize and get across how many times they've told somebody something. They're going to repeat I've told you to kind of hammer that home, to sort of labour the point, to add extra emphasis and extra weight to the idea that they're talking about. So the number of times I've told you is enhanced by the repetition of that phrase itself. So that's the effect of repetition there. Have another look at a different one now, simile. So a simile is using as or like. You're comparing one thing to another. Kind of using, essentially not really comparing, you're more transferring the qualities of one thing onto another. So a good example of this, something I wrote as an example. Leaves fell around us as soft as feathers to the touch. It's an example I wrote as a piece of imagery or piece of a simile example there. So we've got leaves, this is the first thing, and we also have feathers, and then we have this idea of soft. Soft is the quality that's being transferred, the aspect of feathers that transfers to the leaves. We have this idea of pleasant to feel, and in this moment the leaves are falling so softly they feel the same way. So the qualities of the feathers are transferred to the qualities of the leaves. When you use a simile, you're transferring the qualities of one thing onto another to create a special effect, to enhance the image or to enhance the impression of whatever it is that you're describing. So a third one now, kind of related to the first two as well. This one's a bit of a bigger one. It can use the first two within it. So imagery is a very broad technique that writers use. It's very easy to use in your own writing, so I recommend trying it out. It's when you just create an image in the reader's mind. You create a strong image or impression in the reader's mind. I'm going to just look at visual imagery today, but bear in mind there's different types of imagery related to different senses. We can go into that at a later date. So this is my example of visual imagery, something that you would see. Fading copper sun hung low in the clear sapphire sky. So hopefully, if I've written my imagery correctly, that creates a very strong picture in your mind, and you can exactly picture what image I'm trying to convey to you through that sentence or through that phrase. So you have an image of the sun, you understand the colour, you understand the quality of it, that it's fading, you understand its position low in the sky, and then you understand the sky as well. It's clear, it's blue, sapphire in this case. Sorry, I meant to say copper colour. So imagery just creates a very strong picture in the reader's mind, or impression in the reader's mind of something. It's an easy one to understand, and it's also an easy one to pick out in the writing of others, and equally an easy one to create in your own writing. So highly recommend that you start using imagery or talking about imagery in your exams and essays. Next to last, we've got emotive language. This is used in non-fiction as much as it is in creative writing. So if you read articles, for example, or blog posts, or anything that's written by anyone, adverts even, they really often use emotive language. Emotive language, as the term sort of suggests, is basically just creating strong emotions through language. So a word or phrase, or even sentence sometimes, that creates a strong emotion in the reader. This emotion can be anything: positive, negative, happy, sad, any type of emotion. As long as it creates a strong feeling, we class that as emotive language. So my example for emotive language is actually based on sort of newspeak, the way that newspapers and news presenters talk. Of ruthless criminals terrorized the neighborhood for years. That should sound a little bit like a news story to you. It's maybe a bit too dramatic, but it is kind of along the lines of how they use emotive language. So I've got a few words in there: ruthless, criminal, and terrorize, or terrorized. These are all they will create the emotion of fear, or kind of horror. When we hear these words, we panic a little bit about that situation. So we're creating a strong emotion in the readers. We're asking the readers to have a very strong connection to what we're writing about through this emotional response. So emotive language is, again, quite an easy tool, quite a simple one to understand, but really powerful. And it can be used in anything that you write, and you can also talk about it in the writing of others. So finally, this is actually one that people seem to remember, probably because it sounds like what it is: personification. It's giving an inanimate object, well, inanimate, hang on, inanimate object, or sometimes animal as well, depending on your personal sort of. Some people would say that giving an animal human qualities isn't personification. Some people would, but probably you can get away with giving an animal human characteristics as well and call that personification. Basically, when you have character traits that a human has that are passed on to an object or animal, so something that a human would do, or a way that a human would speak or behave, or that kind of thing, the mannerisms and characteristics of a human being transferred to an inanimate object or animal. So I've got a slightly complex example here, but hopefully you get what I mean. I'll type it out for you. I ran along the beach, chased by the waves. He tried to catch my heels with their foamy fingertips. This type of thing is also imagery. It creates a strong image, but what we're interested in is the aspect of personification to this little image here. So, being chased by something, only a conscious animate entity can chase. So we're going to focus on that word chased. And then the waves also try to catch my heels. And beyond that, they have foamy fingertips. So all these qualities are the qualities of a sentient, animate being, not an inanimate object. So the waves and the sea are being personified. They're personified through multiple examples. So they chase the speaker or the narrator. They try and catch the heels. So it's kind of like they're playing a game with the narrator. And they have foamy fingertips. So the image of foam at the point where a wave breaks on the shore is being turned into the image of hands and fingertips there. So hopefully you can see how personification works as well, and you're feeling quite confident with that. Hope you enjoyed my little introduction to language features and you're feeling a lot more confident about using this in your own work now. Thanks for listening.